Hi, I'm Marie. Welcome to Marie's Kitchen. Today we're making pumpkin pie, and pumpkin pie is a classic fall dish, perfect for your Thanksgiving or Christmas table, and it is so easy to make. But that said, it is also very easy to mess up. So today I'm going to walk you through step by step how to make a pumpkin pie with a homemade crust, and as we go I'm going to show you some of the most common pitfalls and how to avoid them. So by the end of this video you'll be able to make a delicious pumpkin pie with a homemade crust that is absolutely going to stun your family and friends this Thanksgiving. I can't wait to share it with you. Let's get started. Okay, to start, we're going to make a homemade crust. So the first step is just to scoop out our flour. We'll need 1 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Just going to scoop it up and then level it off. Pop that into the bowl of our food processor. And this is 1/4 cup. Level that off. Next is 1 tablespoon sugar. Now for the salt, we're going to use about 1/4 teaspoon. Now we'll give that a quick spin. Next up, we need our butter. Now I always leave the butter in the refrigerator until it is time to put it in the food processor because you want your butter cold. So I'm going to grab it out of the fridge now. The reason you want your butter cold is because you don't want it to melt or mix too much up with the flour. You want some little pieces of butter in your pie crust. That's what's going to give you the flakes. As the butter melts, it creates a space in the pie crust dough, and that's where steam will rise and create these flakes of the pie crust. So having little pieces of butter in your crust is the key. And this is unsalted butter. So I'm going to cut this into 8 tablespoons here, approximately. Doesn't have to be exact. Just cut it into some pieces, and then we're going to just toss that into the food processor. Put the lid on and give that a spin. Okay. So now we're going to add 5 tablespoons of cold water. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we'll give this a stir. There we go. There's our pie crust. We're done. Now, although it looks very dry here in the bowl, it looks very dry. When you reach in, be careful of the blade, when you reach in and pull it together in your hands, it holds together like a pie crust, so you know this is done. Wasn't that easy? So easy. Okay, we'll knock this off, and to make it into the dish shape that we need before we roll it out, I'm going to use some Glad press and seal. Pull this out, sticky side up. Take the blade out of the, I am all over the place today, out of the food processor, and then just flip it over right onto the press and seal. There we go. We're just going to use the corners of the press and seal, bring it together into a disc. Twist it closed. And your pie crust is done. So this looks great. We're going to pop this in the refrigerator to chill it. It needs to rest in the refrigerator for at least 20 minutes. You want the gluten in the pie crust to rest. If you have really active gluten, then the pie crust will pull back together and sort of shrink in your pie plate. So you don't want that to happen. So to avoid that, we're going to let it rest, let the gluten rest. We're also refrigerating it so it will harden the butter up a little more. We've been working with it so much here that it's gotten a little bit soft and warm. So we're going to put it back in the fridge and let that firm up and get nice and cold again. So we'll pop this in the fridge. All right, now it is time to roll out our crust, and that's pitfall number 1, is not rolling out your crust before you make your filling. You always need to put your crust in your pie plate, and then we're going to put it in the freezer to chill it so it's very cold and will help it hold its shape. So we'll do that real quick here. We're going to put a little flour on top, a little flour on the rolling pin to make sure nothing sticks. And then the key on rolling out a pie crust is You want to, after each roll, you want to turn the pie crust a quarter turn. If you don't do that, what happens is the pie crust can stick to the countertop, and if your crust sticks to the countertop, it is almost impossible to get off in one piece, and you'll have to just ball it up and start over. So I'll show you as we roll. We're going to roll it. Then we're going to turn it a quarter turn, making sure it doesn't stick. Roll it. Turn it a quarter turn, and turning it a quarter turn after each roll will also help the pie crust keep it in a nice round shape. If you don't turn it, sometimes it can get really lopsided. So we are going to do that to help keep its shape as well. So roll and turn, roll and turn. Now we're going to move it over to our pie crust. Now we're going to move it over to our pie plate. And pitfall number 2, not using a 9-inch or 10-inch pie plate. If you use a deep dish pie plate, this pumpkin pie and this crust will not fit in it, and you'll have a very shallow little sad pie. So be sure to use a 9 or 10-inch pie plate that is not deep dish. Now to measure to make sure the crust fits your pie plate, we're going to flip the pie plate over, set it on the crust, and you should have about 2 inches at least on the sides. And if you have that, you'll have enough to cover the bottom, go up the side, and then create a nice decorative edge. So to move the pie crust, we're just going to fold it over and lift it up on top of the pie plate and then unfold it. There is our pie crust. So much faster than going to the grocery store, right? And the flavor is just unparalleled. Having fresh homemade pie crust with fresh butter is a game changer, I think. So hopefully you'll give this one a try. Okay, now we're going to set it into our pie plate. You don't want to stretch it down, otherwise it'll pull back. So you just gently set it in there. And then we're going to tuck the edges here right under themselves and rest it on the lip of that pie plate. Go all the way around. If you happen to have a big bunch of crust in one area, happens all the time, you can just pinch off a little bit. And then if you have an area where you just don't have enough crust, you can move it around. So here I have kind of a lot. I'll take some from here and I'm going to save it for over there because I didn't have a lot. So you just kind of shove it in there and you'll never see it after it bakes. There we go. Okay, there is our edge. Now we're just kind of even that out a little bit and do that with my hands, getting a little sticky here. So I'm going to use some flour, even that out around the edges so it's nice and even. And now we'll make the decorative edge. I like to do a scalloped or fluted edge, and to do that we're going to use 2 fingers and my knuckle in between, and we're just going to press the crust between 2 fingers and a knuckle and go all the way around. If it gets sticky, just put a little flour on there. And y'all can always comment or email me, Marie@mariesaba.com. You can email me if you have pie crust questions. I am happy to help you troubleshoot, because I know various problems can come up and you just want to have someone you can ask. You can ask me. Leave me a comment here or email me, Marie@mariesaba.com. Making our little edge here. There we go. What I'm going to do now while we make our filling is put this in the freezer. We're going to freeze the crust. That way it gets really cold, and when it goes in the hot oven, it's going to hold its shape. It's not going to sink down and sag into the center of the pie. So if you've ever had that problem, this is how you solve it. You freeze the pie crust, and then you have a really hot oven that it goes into, and that helps your crust hold its shape. All right, we've got our crust in the freezer. Now it's time to make the filling. We're just going to use 3/4 cup brown sugar. Pop that into a bowl. Then we'll add 1 teaspoon cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon salt, 1/2 teaspoon ground ginger, and 1/4 teaspoon ground cloves. Now we'll just mix this up a little bit, sort of our dry ingredients. A lot of recipes will use white sugar. I prefer brown. It gives it a little more color and a little more flavor. So either one will work though. You can smell those spices. It smells so good. Okay, so now we're gonna add our 2 eggs. Then we'll add 1 teaspoon vanilla extract. And now we're gonna add our pumpkin. It's 1 can or 15 ounces pumpkin puree, not pumpkin pie filling. And this is where the next pitfall comes in. It is so important. Different brands of pumpkin have different amounts of water in them. You can see in this can of pumpkin, which is an organic pumpkin, which I very innocently bought thinking, well, I'll use that for my pumpkin pie, but look how watery this is. You can see how much liquid is in there. Now compare that to Libby's pumpkin pie filling, which is what I do recommend you use. Can you see how thick that is? There is not a lot of water in this one, and that is totally going to change the makeup of your pie if you use the watery one versus the thick one. So even though these are both 15-ounce cans of pumpkin, they are very different consistencies, and this can mess up your pie. So I definitely recommend using Libby's pumpkin puree. This will give your pie the best consistency and will work with my recipe and most recipes, which tell you to bake your pie for about 40 minutes. If you use a puree like this that's very watery, it is not going to firm up, and it's going to take a lot longer to cook, which is then going to overcook your crust, probably overcook the sides and cause cracks. So a lot of problems if you use this watery filling. So keep that in mind. Always get your Libby's if you can. Okay, now we're going to put this puree in with our eggs and brown sugar. Now we're going to give this a stir, and we're going to add our half and half. I'm going to use 1.5 cups or 12 fluid ounces of your liquid. And then we're going to give this a stir. So now we'll grab the crust and get ready to put it in the oven. So this is our crust that we got right out of the freezer, and if you're a little concerned about putting something from the freezer into the oven, you're worried it might break, valid concern. That's never happened to me in all my years of doing this, but one way to kind of take extra precaution against that is to take it out of the freezer and let it sit here for about 10 minutes while your oven is preheating. So that will let this pie plate come to a little warmer temperature, so it's not going straight from freezer to oven. So now we'll just put our filling right into the pie crust. Okay, if you do see some air bubbles on top, you can just kind of pop those with your spatula. And that looks great. The next pitfall is burning your crust, and this is so common with pies because often you need to cook it a little bit longer to get it to firm up, and your crust is already done and will start burning. So to avoid that, what you can use is called a pie shield. I love this gadget, and if you make pies even a few times a year, I definitely recommend it. So what you're gonna do is just set that on top of your crust, and this protects your crust and will keep it from burning. It also helps your pie hold its shape, stay up nice and tall on the edges and not sink down. So I do love this gadget. You can put it on throughout the baking, or I generally put it on after about the first 15 minutes. Once the crust has a chance to get kind of nice and golden, then you can add this to help it hold its shape and prevent over browning. Another option is to take a large piece of foil, and then you can simply take a hole in the center, sort of like that. Open this up, and that will also protect your pie crust. Okay, now this is ready to go in the oven. We're gonna bake it at 425 degrees for 15 minutes, then reduce the temperature to 350 degrees and bake it for about 40 minutes more. Just to be on the safe side, I generally do cook my pies on a baking sheet. Now this is more important for fruit pies, which tend to overflow and can make a huge mess in your oven, but I do it for pumpkin pies too. Okay, now we'll pop this in the oven. While the pie's in the oven, I'm going to show you how to roll out another crust to make decorations for your pie. And this is one of my favorite things to do. It always looks so impressive, and yet it's still so easy. So we're going to start with our second pie crust that we made earlier. And then we're just going to, again, a little flour on the counter, pressing it together just a bit. Go ahead and roll this out. A little flour on here. So now we'll use our pie crust cutters, and you can use whatever shapes you want. I love to use leaves for fall, but if you wanted to use pumpkins or for Christmas, you can use Christmas shapes. And then this is called a cutter stamper, and so when you press it into your pie crust, you stamp it, and that creates that nice little vein of the leaf in there, and it just looks so nice. So we're going to set those on a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. We're going to bake those along with the pie. Now we are baking these separately. When I make a pecan pie, I bake the decorations right on with it. But for the pumpkin pie or custard pies, when you have that soft center, you can't add any decorations on top. So we add those after it's finished baking. Now I'm going to add these little decorations to the oven. We're going to bake them for about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes, just until golden. Okay, the pie is still baking. It's got about 10 to 15 more minutes, but the cutouts are done, and I have a pie that I made a few days ago, and so it is nice and cooled, so we can go ahead and decorate this one. But isn't it gorgeous? It looks so nice. It's got this beautiful, nice golden crust, nice smooth center. So now we can just use these cutouts, put them along the edges however you like. Do some nice big ones, and then we'll add the little ones to fill it in. So do those there. And add some little ones on top, making it look like a beautiful fall dessert. Do one of these in there, mix it all in. There is our beautiful pumpkin pie. It was so easy to make. It was just a few tips. You can avoid some of the most common pitfalls. So I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave us a comment. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you like this video, be sure to give us a thumbs up. It means so much to us and also to YouTube. And if you haven't yet, be sure to hit that subscribe button. I've got lots more videos coming up with easy recipes just like this, and I don't want you to miss any of them. For this recipe and more, check out my website, marieseva.com. There you can go and print out this recipe and all my recipes, put them in a notebook, and make your very own Marie's Kitchen cookbook for free. My goal is to give you some really easy recipes that turn out great every time, so you can build some confidence in the kitchen and feel really inspired to share good food with people that you love. From my kitchen to yours, thank you.